Good afternoon or good late morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Gyi Tsakalakis. My name is Gabriela Cubeiro. I'm one of the co-founders of CASEpeer and its CEO. We're the case management software made specifically for personal injury law firms, and personal injury law firms love advertising. So I'm really excited to be welcoming Gyi today because he is someone that's been in the industry for a long time. He also is a former lawyer. I'm sure we're going to dig into his journey to where we are today a little bit and really pick his brain about biggest marketing mistakes and other cautionary tales, because as we were prepping for this, it felt like there was a lot that we could caution people about. So welcome, Gyi.
Gabriela, thanks so much. So happy to be here.
Well, let's get started. So I've got a first question for you. You know, we're going to go over a bunch of stuff today and pick your brain. But tell me, what is digital marketing? You know, marketing has changed so much over the last 10 years. What all is kind of under this umbrella when we talk about this digital marketing thing?
Sure. So what isn't digital marketing? No, but seriously, I take a pretty broad view of it. It's really anything, any communication or interaction or messaging that happens in a digital space with you or your law firm. So that can be search, it can be social media, it can be email marketing. You know, as far as I'm concerned, if it's not like tangible, it's digital. And from a marketing standpoint, it's really anything where people have conversations or interact with your business, your service, your firm.
Perfect. You know what, Gyi, we're actually hearing people are having trouble hearing you. Do you have a different mic or something you can connect to? Thank you guys for chatting into the questions. We want to make sure that you guys can hear them.
I'm not close enough. Is that any better?
Oh, there we go. That might be a little bit better. Can you guys hear them? I can hear you. Yeah, but I guess I do have my volume up, so maybe that's what it is.
Oh, we get thumbs up.
All right. Maybe.
Better? Can we get a better or worse?
Sorry about that. No, I know. I promise, guys, we did a sound check, you know. Someone says maybe wrong mic input, but it did get louder when you brought it up closer.
Yeah, let me see. I can try to switch to, let's try this.
How about that?
Oh, so good. Yeah, okay. That's better. Oh, look at those reactions.
You know, it's funny that I was on the fancy mic and now I'm on the cheap mic. Of course, the fancy mic's the one that doesn't work, right?
You know what, of course, isn't that, we might get into a little bit of that, is it worth the money later today in this conversation. Yeah. Well, so Gyi, I guess for the benefit, I was able to hear you. I had my volume turned up really high. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a recap again of what that digital marketing piece is in your eyes?
Yeah, you know, I like I said, I kind of take a really broad view of it. I think anything that touches your practice, touches your brand, your firm, you know, marketing communication, tapping in digital space, it's digital marketing. It can be search, it can be social, it can be email, it can be messaging apps, it's reviews. Really anything that happens online or on software on your phone, I kind of think of that as digital marketing. And you know, it's all about that experience that your audience is having. I mean, text message can be digital marketing. It's all about those people seeing you and being in the right place at the right time. And the other thing too, that I always bring this up, but a lot of times we talk about this potential client experience stuff in the digital context. A lot of times it's happening even when you're not there, whether it's not happening on a space that you own digitally. You know, a classic example of that are two people that you used to work with talking about you on text. Like, that's still digital marketing as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we hope they're saying something good, right?
Right. I mean, that's the trick, right?
So look, I struggled so hard marketing this piece and this webinar. Again, I'm a huge fan of yours. I just think that one of the things I love to highlight about you is your integrity. And I wanted to go out there and talk about you as a marketing expert, SEO expert, but you and I both know that SEO expert's kind of a dirty word. So can you talk about that a little bit, share your perspective as someone that truly is an authority on SEO, especially in the legal space.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I always joke around in certain circles. I've worn two of the most nefarious labels as a former plaintiff's attorney. And now as an SEO, and an SEO is this really dirty word. Marketing to a large extent is a really dirty word in some circles. And so, should we trust SEO experts? Should we trust lawyers? I always remember my mom told me a long time ago, she's like, there's people that you're going to find you can trust in all walks of life. She was a teacher. She's like, even in my world of elementary school teachers, there are some teachers I trust, some I don't. And so, at the risk of stating the obvious or saying it depends and all that, no, you shouldn't trust the experts. No, but seriously, I think it's more about getting to know the person that you're talking to, right? So, is that person work? And we'll talk more about this, but get references the same way that you would vet any other kind of partner, any other kind of professional service provider. Talk to them. You have to have the foundational knowledge, but get references, talk to other people that are working with them. That's the foundation of trust, right?
I mean, and reviews, as we all know, are some of the most important things nowadays that law firms or any business owner can really point to and build that kind of credibility. And, yes, as you say, look, PI attorneys get just absolutely the worst rap. They're out there taking all their risks up front for their clients. And it's a dirty word as well. Kind of among the layperson that doesn't know how much these attorneys really do for the little guy.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about what your journey was, because as you alluded to, you were a plaintiff's attorney. Not everyone kind of looks back on that and ends up doing marketing. So what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so it even starts before I was a lawyer. I started out. I always had a technical background. I started out as a computer science major before I switched to philosophy and went to law school and started practicing. But the shorter version of that was, as a young lawyer, I was kind of tasked to go out there, and this is like 2004, 2005. What should we be doing online? And it's funny because as we joked even in preparation for this, 2004, 2005 the internet was already here. But a lot of the conversations that I was having were, people won't use the internet to hire lawyers like me, and there are very limited options. A lot of proprietary stuff, some lead generation companies, and so as I kind of
people were in the online yellow pages, right?
Yeah,
that was really
popular back then. Like video sites and stuff like that. Lycos, I think, was the hot search engine. No, we already passed Lycos by that point, but I was having all these conversations, and lawyers would say, they'd say this to me that, I don't think that this works. I don't really know what to do. And as I started to explore the options, I was like, maybe there's a business here. And so I started talking to my business partner, who actually had a background working at another online. They did lead generation for at-home services. And so started getting this conversation kind of started. And then finally in 2008, left practice full time to go out on this entrepreneurial adventure. And, I think some of my background just as a lawyer, but the lawyers are my people, right? That's what I was, and so I just thought, hey, I think we can, provide a better experience for them, and so that was really what kicked off the journey, and still here. So very grateful to be here after all these years, still helping lawyers understand how to use the web.
Mm-hmm. What's your experience now approaching an attorney versus, 10 years ago? I no doubt that conversation has really shifted.
It really has. We talk about this a lot, but there's really a changing of the guard. The newer lawyers, they're digital natives now, right? And so the conversations have really changed from, gosh, I don't really know if people are going to use the internet to, I know they're using it. I don't really know what I should be doing. I don't have any time to do this. Seems kind of complicated. I don't know where the ethics rules line up with doing some of this digital stuff. And so, but I'll say this: there are some lawyers that are super sophisticated with this stuff, and I welcome those conversations when I hop on. But the other thing too, putting the digital piece aside, I love talking to lawyers that are serious about their business, right? They understand what a P&L looks like. They understand what overhead is. Because if you don't have that foundation, there is no magic, likes and YouTube views and tagging or anything that you can do that's going to solve those problems. And that's where I think that's where a lot of lawyers get into trouble. The marketing folks, they're happy to take lawyers' money, and if the lawyer doesn't know what they're actually buying or what the results should look like, that's where you run into this problem. That's really why marketing and SEO is such a dirty word. Part of the reason.
Yeah, and that's actually really true, and that's where I also see that CASEpeer really takes those leads and helps you track at the end of the day how much money you're making off of certain sources. And I always tell law firms that you might see that one source is generating lots of leads even, and you're able to track that. But if you can't tie it to money at the end of the day, that one source where you only get 3 leads a month, but it's your most valuable cases, that might be the one that you actually want to invest more in. So
absolutely. Cost per acquisition of a client is like, that and maybe open case files. Like those are the 2 real KPIs that we always talk about.
You would be surprised how many law firms I talk to that don't use CASEpeer, that don't know how many open cases they have. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
I guess you have the joy of talking to a lot of attorneys just like I do. So you do probably.
One of my favorite stories, we get I will say, hey, how are you tracking your open case files? And someone will send us a photo they've taken with their phone of a yellow pad that has their cases on it. And I'm like, oh, so you want us to transcribe that into a spreadsheet for you? They're like, no, this is working.
It's not. Yeah, they think it is, but it's not. So real talk, getting into some nitty gritty, we talked about digital marketing, and there's a lot of things that people can do that is free, right, outside of the labor. But a lot of law firms are powering their lead gen with pay-per-click. And I did share some stats in here I looked up. PPC is really expensive for especially personal injury attorneys. Certainly, we're based in California and in LA. I mean, I think LA attorneys wish they saw these kinds of numbers. It's probably twice as much. What's your take on PPC? Is the cost worth it?
So it comes back to that original conversation, like start with the business metrics. What are your target cost per acquisition? If you're a firm that's doing volume and, out of 100 cases, you get one, home run case. So then you can start working your way backwards and say, what's your marketing mix look like? What's your marketing budget going to look like? But at the end of the day, it's only as expensive as it's not generating a result. So I think that the place that people get into trouble is Google makes it really easy to open a Google Ads account, right? You just go sign up, give them your credit card. Oh, we'll handle all the bidding for you. In fact, now they're getting to they'll help optimize your campaign
and they'll just do it for you. They just say, hey, these are the changes we're going to make. And next thing you know, you're burning through that budget. The other thing they do is they give you those $500 up front, and you're like, wow, I'm going to get so much for this $500. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to give them a little taste of what it's like to get you hooked. And, but it's, that's the part is that we talk to lawyers all the time. They're like, oh, I tried Google Ads and it doesn't work and it's super expensive. And it's like, it is expensive, so are a variety of other things that you could be doing from a marketing standpoint. But, just like any other marketing or advertising, it's only as expensive as whether or not it's hitting the number that you need it to hit. And so, look, we see things like, I was looking at the cost per click, $6.75, and personal injury. Let me just tell you, it can be multiple hundreds of dollars per click, depending on what you're bidding on. And so, my thing is always like, if you're going to don't expect that you're going to put $100 out and buy a click, and that one click is going to turn into a multi-million-dollar case. That's where the breakdown is, right? So there's some data and testing behind this. You got to have a statistically significant number of clicks. I think if you are thinking about ads in general on Google, I would check out the local service ads. Those are a little bit newer, but it's pay per lead instead of click. Google's trying to shift the risk, and right now it's not a bidding system, I don't believe. And so you can get a flat fixed pay per lead. I expect that will switch to bidding, but if you're less sophisticated, that might be a way to go. It's really easy to set up. And those are I call them the ads that show up above the ads. They're the ads that are showing up at the top of the page with a little picture and your reviews and that kind of stuff. So that might be another option, but the big takeaway here is this: PPC. It's not just open an account, bid broad match lawyer and wait for the phone to ring. And so, if you're going to do this yourself, you got to do the work. Go get the Google Ads certification. Go deep. Learn this stuff. It's not just the same as like, oh, I'm going to buy an ad in the yellow pages and just have me and my phone number. Like, this can get pretty complicated.
I mean, I remember those days. I worked at a law firm that had 200 yellow page books, and each one had the different phone number, and that's how you'd track which one was the right, working the best, and the one that you'd spend a lot of money in to be advertised next year. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm taking away, and I've always kind of seen, is that and this is a question I want to ask you as well, but if someone is working on a limited budget, especially right now, obviously COVID is, definitely did hit PI attorneys hard, especially here in California, where traffic was, dead for a few months last year. Is PPC the place that they should be spending that money and that effort?
So hard to say without knowing more about it, but the answer is probably no. It's not the first place I would go. But it comes back to what's the budget, what are your financials, what's your mix. But yeah, I mean, it's not, if you're going to be in a competitive place, a competitive location, competitive practice area, you need to be prepared. You can, and there's a lot of tools, and even Google has tools, and there are third-party tools, and the vendors are not afraid to let you know about this too. But there are tools to assess and to build a plan about what your cost per clicks are going to look like, what a target conversion rate to a qualified lead should look like, and then from qualified lead to open case. And so you got to do some math, right? They don't teach math in law school. Maybe they are teaching math. Hopefully they are teaching some math in law school.
Hopefully now, yeah.
But you got to do that math to build a plan that makes sense. Because again, if your target, say you're doing, I'm just make something up. You're doing like soft tissue or traffic tickets, and you have one lawyer at your firm, like, PPC is not the first place to go spend money or time. On the other hand, if you're like you want to be like the market dominating leader, and you're just trying to catch all the attention of anybody who's searching for car accidents at any given time, then PPCs probably should be on the table.
Yeah. So what are the biggest mistakes that law firms make, apart from trusting an SEO expert they shouldn't trust?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they forget the basics. The practice of law, it's even in this world that we live in, it's still a relationships and reputation business. And so, people are still going out there and asking for referrals. People are still making hiring decisions about know, like, and, through people they know, like, and trust. And so I think a lot of lawyers think, I'm just going to go and hook up with some SEO person and start ranking. And then you go and look, and I see this all the time where there'll be big TV spenders that really haven't adjusted to this idea of the blending between offline and online. And you go look at their Google My Business profile, and it's all 1-star reviews. And so think about that. They're spending all this money on TV. They're generating all this demand. People are going and looking these lawyers up online, and then they see 100 1-star reviews,
yeah,
and
they're not getting a call.
Not working.
Yeah, they're not going to get the phone call, because these days, no matter what you do, I mean, now you even see billboards that don't have law firm phone numbers. And 5 years ago, that would have been, even 5 years ago, would have been a huge faux pas not to have your phone number. But these days, having your name on there, someone's going to Google you, and but again, they're going to see those reviews front and center. So if you're not harnessing those positive reviews, people are not going to pick up the phone.
Yeah, and I think the other big mistake is to think that you can just ignore digital, because at the end of the day, even if your firm is built on a lot of word of mouth referral, where do you think those conversations are happening, right? Especially during COVID times, they're not happening face to face. They're happening through digital communication tools. And you can see it. I'm in a bunch of private Facebook, lawyer-to-lawyer Facebook groups, and there are lawyer-to-lawyer referrals going on Facebook. WhatsApp, messaging apps. Hopefully, I'm stating the obvious by saying email. And so, a lot of lawyers that are still resisting the digital play, they're just missing out on those conversations, those opportunities.
Well, the other element of that is that that's all fine and great when you're starting out. But at some point, if you want to generate anything organic, right? Someone happens to be word of mouth and they're trying to find you because they heard your name 2 years ago because someone referred you and now they want to, or they used you, right? And then they're trying to refer you, a friend to you or something. If they can't find you because they don't remember exactly how to spell your name or they don't remember your phone number, if they can't find you online, that's a lead you didn't get.
100%. And again, the other thing, the other piece of this equation that really has changed over the last, 15 years or so is the legal services consumers' expectations are even more demanding. Their attention shorter. There's more lawyers per capita than there ever been. They're not waiting for your slow website to load. They're not waiting to try to go find information. I still, and it's happening less, but I still even recently had a conversation and, the law firm's like, if they want to get a hold of us, they'll leave a voice message. And I'm like, no, they won't. And let's go. Let's go listen to your calls.
Yeah.
And no, they didn't. They just hung up.
Yeah. Especially not on an intake call. I mean, it's just not happening. No, because they can scroll down to the list to 10 other attorneys that are going to pick up the phone.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other piece of this is, just from an impression standpoint, like what does it say about your practice if people can't find any information about you online? It's not exactly saying that you're the most state-of-the-art law firm, right? You're not and again, when you're talking about in the circumstances of the pandemic, folks want to be able to do things like sign documents online and take appointments online. And in fact, Google My Business, if you search someone's name, one of the attributes you can set up there is we do online appointments, and that shows up right in the profile. And that just the technology alone can be a competitive advantage because you're reducing the friction for someone to be able to actually contact and communicate with you.
Absolutely. I mean, in CASEpeer, one of people's favorite features on the intake side is that, they can use it later in the case too, but they can text with their clients and the client can text photos of the accident, saves right into the case. And I'll never forget, this was years ago now, but I was talking with someone in the legal tech space, and she was in a position where she needed to hire an attorney, and she reached out to 3 attorneys, and the one that could text with her because she was super busy, that's the one that she hired, right? It really makes a difference.
Oh, 100%. And that's another story too, that a lot of lawyers, especially in the plaintiff, the PI side, have been, at least the ones that I've talked to, it's getting better, but they can't believe that they're getting shopped with 5 other firms. They're like, this is never how it has been. But I talk to lawyers that are like the most recognized name in their area for what they do. And they're like, yeah, a lot of our leads, they come in and they're like, we're talking to 5 different lawyers. We'll get back to you. And like, that's part of what the internet has done is it's democratized access to a variety of lawyers, and the information's there, that, the power is in the consumer's hands.
That's actually, more competition, but for the people starting out, that's actually really encouraging that you can, with the right technology in place and the right, kind of marketing alignment, you can get in front and compete with people with budgets that are 100 times your size.
Right. And again, it goes back to that, that thing about SEO is, and this is like just classic marketing again, but everybody's competing for the same, the SEO people call them head terms, right? It's like city plus practice area plus attorney. And those clicks on paid are going for hundreds of dollars. And the SEO people that are doing that, some of them are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month to get their site to rank for those queries. But guess what? Here's the good news. 15% of every search every day on Google, according to Google, has never been entered into Google before. So if you're, I know it's mind blowing.
Wow, that's amazing.
I always am. That's one after all these years, it still gets me when I think about it. But there you go. There's your opportunity, is to focus on, think about the questions that people are asking you. And again, you got to go deep. It can't be like, well, what does my prospective client ask me? How much does a lawyer cost? Well, that's way too general. You have to go deep. You have to think about the thing, what's keeping them up at night, right? What questions they have about long-term care in the PI setting. What kind of language is their insurance company telling them when they're denying their claims? Like, Go deep on that, and there is a ton of opportunity to build responses to those questions on your site and actually generate traffic that can convert.
I've absolutely seen that works. And that actually is really great. There's a question, we'll get to a lot of these at the end, but one question that's kind of building upon that is there value to paying someone to generate online content like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or is it only effective when it's organic, as in when, it comes directly from the law firm?
It's a great question. I can tell you this. The short answer is no. I mean, there are, in fact, there are law firms that I would say, please don't write anything online because this is not your strong suit. But the thing is this, it needs to be measured in terms of objectives, not in like quantity, right? So if you can go on Google right now and search for like blog post packages for lawyers. Like that's not a good way to do that. Well, I shouldn't even say that. Maybe the people that are selling those blog posts are fantastic writers, but
chances are the same blog post with just different law firm names is showing up across the internet, which is not good.
I'm trying to be generous, but the point is that if you're working with people who are, if you have a content strategy person who's doing the research on the queries that you need to be focused on, and you have a professional, you hire a professional writer, I even tell lawyers all the time, I'm like, this isn't your thing. Go work with journalism students, right? Because you want to be covering your topics like a journalist would. So, gosh, you can't even use journalism might be a bad word today, but in any event, you want to be covering your industry like a journalist would. And so maybe you go and you have an internship with a local journalism student, or you hire a journalist, but hire people who can write for the web. Now, that does not abdicate you, in my opinion, of the responsibility to review and approve what people are going to be publishing on your behalf. That's where you get into that ethics quagmire. I mean, again, I think working with someone who has experience, maybe they're a retired lawyer who just really likes to write and they're good at it. That might be a good way to do it. But it's too broad of a brush to paint that only the lawyer at the law firm can write. One, that might not be their skill set. Two, look at a lot of other professionals. They're having assistants. The president of the United States, the people that do public speaking all the time, they have assistants. And so it's finding people with those skill sets. Don't completely outsource it in a way that is just like set it and forget it and I don't have to think about it. Review it, approve it, but measure it by, is this piece of content, whether it's a blog post, an article, a page on your site, is it generating targeted traffic? Is that targeted traffic converting into phone calls, form fills, live chat requests? Are those form fills, phone calls, and live chat requests converting into actually open case files? And again, that's a reason why something like CASEpeer is so imperative, because that's how you can measure, you can connect those back end business metrics to the front end marketing metrics and really know the value of what you're publishing online.
Absolutely. And so one thing too, as I read Stephen's question, I'm thinking about is, there's one thing that you don't want to do, and I see that some law firms do this, especially when they're starting out or if they're solos, that, they will spend money on something that's totally external to their brand, right? And that's the only place where you're putting in energy. And what I mean by that is that it's not happening in your real estate, your online space. And what you do want to make sure that you're doing, whether you're, again, I love the idea of hiring journalism students. Finding great content writers is hard. Do not go cheap on it, and make sure you proofread. And if someone's not a good fit, you're not going to teach them how to write. Like, move on and find the next person that's going to do a great job.
Right. And to your point, you think about it, it's like, think about the time it takes to actually put together a good piece. Someone can't do that and live in the really with any kind of quality of life in the United States for $50 for a piece that takes 10 hours to put together, right? And so people will say, well, how much should it cost? And it's back to that same thing we talked about with paid search. It's only as expensive as it's not producing the result or meeting the objective that you want it to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that wherever you're putting that content, that you're building it out on your domain as you're growing that website. And that's when then you're sharing it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And of course, you're not always just sharing your own content, your own articles, but it sure as heck does help to be doing that.
Yeah, and again, in the social context, that's another thing that I think, talking about mistakes lawyers make, and you mentioned this, but it's a lot more about engagement and building relationships than it is just straight broadcasting, right? Like when the web went read write, so you could actually publish online for the first time, you could start publishing on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and forums and all this places. Lawyers thought, oh, this is awesome. This is an opportunity for me to just post that I offer free consultations everywhere. And that, and guess what happens? That gets filtered out, that gets blocked. But if you, instead of broadcasting, if you're actually connecting, if you're commenting, if you're engaging, if you're sharing other people's content, that's how people start to recognize your name. And then guess what happens? When they need a lawyer like you, they think of you, right? That's the top of mind awareness. That's the reputation relationship stuff. And
actually just, to really hammer that point home, these different sites, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, anything like that, they are looking for content that has activity, and the sooner you can get that activity on. So look, for those of you starting out, even if that's your mom going in there and commenting on your article and then you're commenting back, it is something and it does help. So the second you put that post up, text your mom, text your brother, whatever that is, have them put some friendly comments on it. Certainly helps if it's not the same last name. But it's great to create some energy around your post because it will rank better early on. Get some more eyeballs on that. So we've touched on a lot of these kind of throughout the conversations, Gyi, but what do you see as kind of the digital marketing essentials? And I think the next question is sort of making the most out of a limited budget, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with this.
Sure. So I've been telling folks now for the last couple of years, and the marketing people always, we get in these debates about like, if you could only do one thing, what would you do? Everybody wants to know that. And I would say, historically, I would probably say website. But today, I will say Google My Business. Because again, as we talked about, for folks who don't know, if you claim a Google My Business profile, you can go search for Google My Business guidelines, but you get to claim one for every office location, you get one for every practitioner. But once you claim the profile and put your name in there and update your information, and assuming that you don't have a very popular name like Britney Spears or something, when people search on your name, so those word of mouth referrals, or people search on your firm name or your name plus like attorney, that gets really primo real estate on Google for those searches. And it also shows up in the local pack for non-branded searches. So those head terms we were talking about, like Chicago personal injury lawyer, those little map results show up there. Google My Business reviews also power the reviews for the local search ads. So another reason why Google My Business, if you do nothing else, that's the place to be. And on top of it, there's a lot of great features there. You can add photos, you can add videos. I've seen lawyers that they'll do video testimonials with clients. They post them around their Google My Business profile. There's a post feature there, so you can talk about good work you're doing in your community, or leadership you're taking, or speaking, and all that kind of stuff can be right there. Your hours are there. It pulls in reviews from around the web. So if you've got reviews on other sites like Avo or Facebook, you might see those there as well. But it's all free. That's the best part. The Google My Business part's free. It's just a matter of you going there and setting it up. But I say that, and I also want to make sure, because I know there's some folks that are on here that are a little more savvy, and you're not going to just set up your Google My Business profile and rank for all these competitive terms. There are all these factors that Google uses. But if you do nothing else, that's where I would start, just so you can control that real estate on Google for searches on your name. Reduce that friction. Give people your phone number to call you. You can put in an appointment booking link if you offer online appointments right there. And again, that's search your name, click schedule. No friction, no hunt for email address, no hunt for phone number. It's all right there. Super easy to reduce that friction.
I love that. And one of the things too that's really important to keep in mind is how many searches are happening right now on mobile. And I think that those are performing really well on mobile, because depending on where someone's at, if they're down the street from you, I mean, you're more likely to show up in their mobile phone searches. And listen, I mean, I'm not Googling anything. When I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm working, but every other time I'm working off of our phone. And I'm sure that that's the same for most of you guys here.
Yep.
So it sounds like that's kind of encompassed in making the most of a limited budget. Is there any other piece of advice that you might have here, or anything to add? How important is like posting on social media? Because that's one of those things that feels free. We talked a little bit about engagement, but if someone has limited time and resources, is that worth the effort? What are your thoughts?
Maybe. No, I'll say this is kind of how I look at it. So I'm going to segment our conversation in two ways. So when we say limited marketing budget, I assume we mean there's not a lot of money to spend on stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. But here's the thing. Your time is not free. And so if I don't want people that are listening to this to walk away and think, oh, I don't have a lot of money to spend, and therefore I'm not going to do anything, because guess what? Now that's not limited budget, that's no budget. And the cost of your time costs money. You have to attach a time. So let's segment that. But let's say that you don't have any money to spend, but you have a lot of time to spend. Maybe you're a new lawyer, or maybe you play a role in your firm where you're the business development person. You're not spending all day in court and taking depositions and actually practicing law. Then I would say this: you should definitely focus on social and video content for sure, because video content, I mean, they've been talking for years how video content is going to eat the web. It already is eating the web. But what better medium to be able to let people know what you're like, why you do what you do, who you help, how you're uniquely qualified, your personality, all the things that go into people making a hiring decision. And again, a lot of it's emotional. That's the other thing. Lawyers, they hate that. They're like, well, I'm the most experienced. I fight the hardest. I've been practicing the longest. I went to the best law school. Well, guess what? The consumer, they have no idea of any of that stuff. And honestly, and study after study shows this, it's an emotional connection. There's something about you. Maybe you have a sense of humor that they enjoy, but that's what actually stands out. And it's that kind of stuff that you can do through video. You can post native videos on LinkedIn. Again, it doesn't cost you anything to post them there. That's what I would spend most of my time on. The only thing I would, if I was going to spend some money, and I guess you could do it, you could do this by hand too, but make sure you add the caption file to your video files. So if you post on LinkedIn, most people watch those videos passively. They're not even listening with sound. And I think a lot of people that relate to that when they watch videos online, they're not really playing the sound. But it's free. But again, it's back to the same thing. It's if you didn't have the internet, what would I tell people to do? I would say go out in the community and network, meet people, connect with them, have conversations, do all those things that we would say 25 years ago, but now just do them online. Go find Godin has a great blog post I've been referencing a lot recently called, he calls it clusters, but if you just go search Seth clusters. But the short version is that we're gravitating around these affinity audiences, right? So like, I've got some friends that they love going out to lunch and recording their lunch. They'll say, hey, we're doing working lunch. And they go and post that in these foodie groups on Facebook. And people love it. They share it. In fact, they get messages saying, hey, when's your next video coming out? But think about the relationship building, the top of mind awareness. And the only thing that cost them was the meal, which they were going to get anyway, and the time that it took to actually take that video, get the caption file, and upload it.
That's amazing. And that was one question that came into the group about the videos. And one thing as you were talking that I was thinking about too is, a few years ago when we talked about video, it was hiring an agency that would help put together an amazing, breathtaking video for you that was like TV ready. And there's some great ones out there. And those are still, I think, effective in some spaces, but we're talking a little bit about something different, right? There's a lot of video content you can do that's free. I think it feels still scary to a lot of law firms because they want to control that image so much. But what's your take on it? I mean, like TikTok, right? I mean, I feel like half of my clients are on TikTok posting some really fun stuff. So what's your take on kind of this homegrown video content? Is that maybe more effective?
Yeah, again, it can be. It's the same thing with the blog post conversation, right? Are you entertaining? Are you good at it? Are you comfortable being on video? I think some of it's a matter of like practicing, and I would say this: if you haven't done any video content, I would not start with TikTok. TikTok's like that's like the advanced.
It's the Wild West still. I mean, I'm not on TikTok yet. I don't know. Yeah,
and the users have all sorts of expectations. Like there's a whole culture around TikTok. But I'll tell you an easier one. An easier one's LinkedIn. And the big thing, and this isn't to bash TikTok, because I know there are plenty of lawyers that have an amazing following,
working
and they
for
tell
them.
me all the time, they're like, I'm getting so much business from TikTok, which lawyers are like, I can't believe that, but it's happening. But go to LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn has business intent. So if you're not ready to like break out a dance move, you can go onto LinkedIn and just talk about your story. Talk about, who you help, how you help them, how you're uniquely qualified to help. Maybe you talk about a local cause that you're passionate about, or maybe you just talk about like what's going on at your firm. Like, hey, we're really proud that we just helped somebody through a really difficult time. That's the kind of stuff that people want. And you can, just bring your authentic self to it. You don't have to, I think that a fancy brand video is great, but they're expensive. I mean, the production quality, they're like Hollywood movies. And so, an authentic, as long as you're being yourself, get some, you can use one of these iPhones. I'm going to say this and people are going to be like, well, that's the problem. But you can record very solid videos with solid sound quality. Even with an iPhone. I do recommend getting a mic or a high-end webcam. Apparently don't get this mic, which is super fancy, but doesn't work for this. But the point being is that you can practice, get comfortable with it, and then it can work. But if it's not your thing, don't force it, right? There's nothing worse than like a cringeworthy lawyer who's really like their social media person told them, we got to record a video of you. And then it's actually more of a liability because people are like, watch the video and they're like, I was going to hire you. Now I'm scared of you.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's finding someone else at your firm that can provide that message, right? Like it's great when it's you, but it doesn't have to be, right?
100%.
It's about being relatable. And I'll say too, in addition to LinkedIn, I do see Instagram as being a great space for that, going live, sharing your advice. I know there's a bunch of our clients that use that really effectively. It's some way to get that name out there and build relationships with other lawyers, which can turn into great referral relationships.
That's a really good point, is go watch other lawyers that you see online that you think are doing a good job, that you can see. In fact, forget about that. Not that you think are doing a good job, but you can see from the engagement on their posts, right? People are commenting, they're sharing, they're liking it. That can be a great source of inspiration for you. But yeah, I mean, I think another good point that you made that we see lawyers do all the time is if you've got, you just handed the settlement check to the client and the client says to you, thank you so much, you saved me. Like, they're crying, it's an emotional thing. And they're like, what can I do to help you? Would you be willing to do a video testimonial? Our firm relies on word of mouth referrals and testimonials. Would you be willing to do that? And a lot of times they're like, I would love to do that. And then they end up being a lot better advocate for you than you are.
100%. And one marketer told me too, that just, even though, again, and I'm someone I love things to look good, right? So I really resonate with those of you that are scared of doing this video that's raw and it's unstaged, but everyone says that consumers prefer those because they feel genuine, they feel real, and they don't feel like it just feels more honest when they're looking at it, and they're going to trust it more. So, getting those raw videos when they're in the moment, if you have a client that's comfortable with that, that's a really great opportunity. And it used to be photos, but again, all of these channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they want you to be uploading video content. So give it what it wants. The algorithm's gonna do the work for you. So we talked about a lot of these, Gyi. Is there anything that we've recently seen that we haven't touched on? We've talked about videos. We've talked about a lot of other stuff today. Anything else that comes to mind in terms of recent changes?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the big conversation everybody's talking about is still, what's the impact of the pandemic right now. And so, for people that I've been talking to that we've been doing this a long time, and we've been advocating things like practice management software and, lead tracking and content marketing. A lot of this stuff is not new, but I think if there's a change, the numbers are just up, right? A lot of us can't meet face to face. And so we're on Zoom, we're consuming a lot more digital content, It's a conversation for another day of what that's doing to our brains. But if we're talking what's changing, that's what's changing, is that lawyers have been kind of forced into adapting to the situation. And so there's more time. And so if it, spending more time engaging, spending more time on these social platforms, building these relationships, creating this video content, like that's really the change, is that there's been a shift towards that. And I do think there's a more sophisticated lawyer marketing place. It's crowded, more lawyers are coming online. And so you really got to get back to, like, it goes all the way back to the beginning. Like, what can you do to stand out in the crowd? What are your unique value propositions? What are your 3 uniques? Like, what things together make you who you are that your competition can't copy? Those are the things I would focus on, and I would focus on getting that message out there.
I mean, I love that advice. So this is the real question today. What questions should people ask if they're hiring a marketing agency?
Yep. And so this is a starting point for me. Is number one would be, have you worked with lawyers similar situated to me, both in practice, in geography, and firm size and objectives? Get those references. 2, how are we going to define success and over what timeline? That's a huge one.
That's great.
Once an agency starts to say, like, it's a proprietary process and we can't talk about what we're going to do, like, they're making it easy for you, right? They should be trying to set forecasts. They should be talking benchmarks. They should be talking business metrics to you, right? So, like, are they asking you what your target cost per acquisition for a client is? Are they talking about, what's the next 3, 6, 12 months look like for you in terms of success? And then how are we going to build a plan to hit that? Like, those are the conversations that I'd be talking. Are you working with other lawyers that are direct competitors, local competitors to mine? I'm still shocked every day that I see that, where it's like these firms, they're working with the exact same marketing company as all the other PI firms in their metro, and they're like, oh, I don't see a problem with that. And then you go online, you're like, guess what? There's only one number 1 spot in ads and in organic search. So that's another one that we always talk about. And really, it's the transparency stuff. How are we going to communicate? What are you going to include in your reporting? How am I going to get a hold of you when I have questions? How much transparency you're going to give me, and like the reasons and rationale for what you're doing. But I think if you focus on those questions about, like, have you worked with lawyers like me? How are you going to define success? And then get transparency on everything. I want final approval on everything. I want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. I think you avoid most of the.
And can I ask you, when you're setting up a relationship with a new client, how often are you guys checking in? Is it like you set up weekly meetings, daily meetings? Does it depend? What should attorneys really be expecting from an agency?
It's a great question, and it really does depend. Some of my clients, they'll say things. We try to educate and say, look, we want your final sign off on all these strategies and approval on the content, everything like that. But then they say, look, okay, I approve all this, go forth. And then, I want to check in on a month-to-month basis on reports. I would say you shouldn't be communicating less than monthly. But on the other end of the spectrum, some of our engagements, lawyers are like, look, I'm going to handle a lot of this work, but I want someone over my shoulder making sure I'm doing it right. Then there's a much more high touch, right? Then it's almost like weekly, sometimes it's daily. So it all depends on the engagement, but it always should be measured through the lens of, are we meeting our marketing objective? If the objective is a target cost per lead or a target cost per acquisition of a case, or it's a reputation engagement where you want to grow the number of reviews online, are you hitting the numbers that you forecasted? That's really should be the conversation. And I would say don't make it less than a month, right? I know some of these agencies, they'll be like, well, it's a 3-year commitment and we can't say anything for 3 years. And I'm like, that's an easy one. Just walk away. There's plenty of people that are offering month-to-month service, 6 months. So you have those conversations, ask the questions.
Yeah. And I mean, and it is, you bring up, and I just want to reiterate for everyone, it's not a set it or forget it. I mean, it's also very different if you've been working with an agency for 6 months and a year and they're doing great work and you start to be more hands off, that's fine. But if you're going to make the investment to someone on the outside, those monthly check-ins to make sure that your goals are being met so that you can ask the difficult questions if they're not, and so that changes can be made because, again, not every agency is going to be super hands-on, and it's really important for you to, be having those conversations and making sure that you're happy. So look, I mean, Gyi, again, you're one of the good ones. And you've said that you've used the word transparency a lot. And it sounds like that's, I can tell based even on your website that that's one of the most important things to you when you founded AttorneySync. Is there anything else that you kind of want to leave people with?
No, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for the kind words. I think that it really comes down to finding those people that, and they're out there. There are plenty, and we don't always get it right either. Just like any business. But have the conversations, ask the questions, make sure you're aligned on values, make sure you've defined success. And if you do that, I think you can avoid most of that. For just to give you kind of our approach, like we only do month-to-month agreements. We offer exclusivity, so we only work with one firm in a particular practice area. And all of our results are based on the results that we've come to, defining that success, as we talked about, is, what are you trying to achieve? And then trying to build forecasts and improve upon that, and having those conversations about, like, are we moving in the right direction? How do we know? And so I think if you work with folks like that, SEO and digital marketing is less of a bad word.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. If anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat. You guys have been asking them along the way, but I can always pass those on to Gyi, and we can get answers for you. So thanks so much, Gyi, again, for joining me. It's been such a pleasure. I have been wanting to pick your brain now for a few years, so I had to plan a webinar to make it happen. So thank you so much.
I'm grateful for my brain being picked, and hope to be able to see you on the conference circuit again at some point.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing you, and certainly all of our lovely clients that joined us today. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.